This is John Shearer, and here are some photos of scenes where the Baylor Camp of old took place. Included will be memories from former camp director Jack Stanford. How did you get started working at Baylor Camp?
Well, I was playing football for Scrappy Moore at the University of Chattanooga, and I needed a summer job, and I talked with Coach Scrappy and asked him if he knew of a place where I might get a job, and he said, well, let me call Sib Evans, who is the camp director at Baylor. And he called Sib, and Sib said, I need someone to come out and work in the play camp, which was the little 5, 6, and 7-year-olds. Jim Pennington was the director of that camp, and that was in 1950. So I started working at Baylor in 1950 while I was still in college, and it was so enjoyable. Even the little 5 and 6-year-olds, I enjoyed working with them. And Sib Evans hired me again in 1951 and 52. I was the canoe instructor on the Baylor Lake, which had a little water in it in those years. Now it's not quite as attractive now as it was then. And then in the spring of 1953, Dr. Barks, with Sib Evans and Luke Worsham recommending that I be hired as a teacher and a coach. That's the way I came to be on the Baylor faculty for 19 years. So the Baylor Camp opened up my life to being a teacher and a coach at Baylor, and from there I of course got into administration and have really been around independent schools since 1953.
What did you enjoy about Baylor Camp and working with it?
Well, the first thing I enjoyed the most was working with the people. You know, the people, not only in camp, it was working with the campers, their families, but the people you were working with as well, because you were working alongside your fellow teachers, your fellow coaches, and we just had a good time. The second thing I liked about it was that we had the freedom to be creative. We use your own talents, help the young people have a good time. We had fun. We had fun with the campers and with each other. So those are two things that just pop into my mind immediately.
Tell me about working with Herb Barks Jr. there, the future president of Baylor, when he was a young counselor and helper with the camp. Tell me what all he did. I understand he was quite a storyteller.
Well, Herb, of course, followed his father in his father's footsteps and became president of Baylor. But back in Baylor summer camp, he was the most entertaining storyteller I think I've ever been around, and I consider him today to be one of the finest speakers I've ever heard, and he's a good friend. And Herb was in charge of evening activities for the boarding students, and also for the weekend trips for boarding students, and they were never bored. Herb told ghost stories that some of the counselors hated to hear him tell the ghost stories, because it took them sometimes an hour or so to calm the campers down before they could go to bed, because they were afraid a ghost was going to jump out of a locker any time. But he would tell these stories that just had them on the edge of their seats. And on the weekends, he would take trips with them. He would go to Nickajack Cave, and they'd go in the caves and turn off all the lights, and it was pitch black, and he would tell stories in there. Or he would take them to the Lost Sea at Sweetwater, unto these hills, and at Cherokee Nation up in Gatlinburg. And, so he was just so entertaining, and I sat there amazed at how he could capture the attention of all of those campers, and they were so quiet and they would not move at all when he was telling stories.
Tell me about working with Luke Worsham there with the swimming part of the camp.
Well, I did. Once I was employed as a regular faculty member, they asked me if I would work with Luke Worsham in the old outdoor pool that was located next to the old gymnasium. And Luke Worsham was such a joy to be around. He was a hard worker, great fellow to be with, always ready to go to work for you and work with you. So Luke and I taught swimming together for 7 years. We were lifeguards. We taught Red Cross life saving, and we also taught swimming. I took the ones who were the young boys who were a little bit afraid of the water, and I would be a little more gentle with them. Luke would take those who were ready to swim but were afraid to get in the deep water, and he would just toss them off the diving board and watch them carefully. But there are a lot of men in the Chattanooga area who will say that Luke Worsham taught them to swim by throwing them off the diving board into the deep end of the water. So we were a pretty good team. We also taught some of the faculty wives how to swim during lunch hour. They would come down and swim, and Luke and I would teach some of them how to swim. So we had a good time.